Wonderful people. Thank you for being with us again today. Yes, and we're here today to talk about a little bit about a subject matter that sometimes we overlook. Sometimes we overlook this subject matter because maybe we're not paying attention to it because the circumstances, situation, and condition always come about and to play in our doing things, hinder us, confusing us, getting us distracted into different things. But then sometimes because of a cause or need or situation that might bring us to a place that, well, we're not just thinking maturely, we're not thinking correctly, and then we make these decisions, we make choices, and then sometimes we call it mistakes. But a lot of times we don't just say mistakes because we do make mistakes, we do make errors. And then there are consequences of some of the mistakes and the errors and the choices that we make. But in the meantime, I am Michael Jones, inspirational speaker, life coach, spiritual provider, writer of encouraging and motivating short reads, using gospel messages and principles to inspire, encourage, to give hope, wisdom, confidence, and to stand in the storms and the challenges of life, to go above and beyond the ordinary. Because we're not ordinary. We are built and made and created for greatness. And we have greatness on the inside. So let us bring out that greatness, not to equal, but to excel, not to be just like everybody else. But we are special and we are unique. Yes, we are unique. Everybody have a fingerprint. Everybody have a DNA. So you're special. So therefore, let us come to talk about this thing of making right decisions. And sometimes those right decisions might not be so right. So in making decisions, we like to talk about a story. And the title that we just put up then, Closet Secrets, tells about a young lady, a girl, that decided that she must do something to give up on life because of the consequences, because of the decisions she made, and the consequences of that decision. Oh, yeah, I get it right one day. But anyway, let's go back to the story. Standing on a cliff, high in the mountains, she made up her mind. Tears flowing, heart hurting, going back over what the action that she had done, going over the shame and the guilt that brought her to that place. So she made up in her mind to say, I just as well to go ahead on and get this over with because I know that I'm not going to be forgiven, and it's so much shame, so much pain that I don't even want my body to be found. And she was getting ready to step off the cliff, but her heart was still hurting. Her heart was still in pain about her action because she had betrayed a trust. She had betrayed her best friend, which was her husband, and her daughter, 3 years old. So picking up the keys and kissing her daughter, putting her keys on the table, looking at her husband, wanting to hold him, wanting to kiss him, wanting to just be there for him and with him. But she knew that if she wake him up, that he was going to convince her or to try to convince her not to do this. So she left all of her ID there on the table, caught a train to a state, to a mountain area where she went before. And that's why she's standing in this place of getting ready to do something to herself. But let's go back to why, the real reason why she came to this mountain. At age 14, in school, children picking on her, being bullied. Not say exactly bullied, but just picking on her because she didn't wear the right clothes. She wore the same sneakers all the time because all of her clothes came from the clothes bin of the ministries that gave away clothes. And she wanted to know why this was happening because her mother and father were both drug addicts. And she had other siblings. And the little food came from food stamps and donation and that stuff because all of the money that came through the door, most of it went to their use and their abuse of their bodies, in their mind, their spirits. So the children were more or less neglected in a sense of speaking, but they had to go to school. And being there sometime with mismatched outfits or whatever on and things that don't look right, so they picked on her. But in the meantime, in the family structure, there were some friends that stopped by, not knowing whether or not they were involved with the drugs activities or what. But there was one such man there, older guy, and evidently he had an eye for the young girl. At 14, she would start filling out, looking good. So he wanted her to babysit. But in the meantime, why he wanted her to babysit? Because he wanted to go out, he said. And his wife was going to the casino. Evidently, his wife had adopted some younger children. So she agreed. The parents definitely agreed because there was money coming in, because make for sure that he's going to pay her. He said, oh, sure. Yeah, I'm paying her. But around the second time of babysitting, he approached her, offered her more money, and let her know that it's more to come if she would agree with him. And needing these things, getting the situation to offer her a problem about the children picking on her and not fitting in the community. So she agreed. And now things started to roll. Things started being active. And this is why the young lady, we see her getting in and out of cars now. Oh, that's my uncle. That's my godfather. That's my friends of the family just giving me a ride. And no one paid in too much of attention. But she was getting money for favors. And she started to increase in her activities as far as her clothing goes. She started wearing better clothes, blings, shoes. And before long, it was time to graduate from school. So from 14 to 17, by she graduated, she became pregnant with a boyfriend, and she had a baby, a little girl, oh, beautiful little girl. So now she had accumulated enough money. She had bought all of her stuff, no more picked on by the children in school and neighborhood. She was fitting in now. So she explained to her husband about what's going on, because he had an idea of what was happening, but evidently he accepted it. So now they have a child together. And so she confessed to him that it was over with. All her activities was done, over, forgotten. But in the meantime, 3 years later, one of her old friends, originals, came to her begging and crying and pleading. I need to see you. I want to see you. I have to see you. Please, just one more time. One more time. Well, she said that she's over with this stuff. But in the meantime, there's always a need for extra money. There's always a need for something to come by. And as something came by, she complied with the guy. Naturally, things happen. But in the meantime, she now has been infected with the virus. With the virus. The guy infected her. So she infects her husband as well. But she didn't notice at first. Finding out at 20 years old now. Apartment set up. She even started being socially inclined to going to church, different ones. People that were talked about her before, she bared that. They assumed that. What's going on? But now she embraced it. She embraced it. She bared the trial, the trauma, the situation. And she moved on with her life. So now, she finds out that she's infected with the virus and that she had infected her husband after telling him that it was over about her past life. So the shame and the guilt that came about led her to go up to that mountain. So as she was standing there on the cliff, hurting real bad. Now it's early in the morning. She heard this noise going over, and her chain of thought was interrupted. It was geese going over, and the closer, like right over her head even, the noise of the geese interrupted her. She opened her eyes, and lo and behold, it was a picture of the sunrise. Like a master artist painting a picture on the walls of the mountain. It was something so glorious, the lights, the colors, that was so glorious that she just didn't know what to say, didn't know what to think at the time, but she knew that the beauty of this was something different, because this is something that she had never experienced before and never seen before, and it was so glorious that it just stood out in her spirit. And as it stood out in her spirit, she could just feel a voice that says, help others. Tell them about the mistakes. Tell them about the consequences of bad decisions. Help them to overcome that situation that they're facing. Without thinking, she turns and goes back to the main road, walking down the road to that main highway. And then a cop blows the horn. What are you doing out this early, young lady? So she ignored him. She kept walking. The guy like stops. Say, you need a ride? So she gets in the car. Where are you going? She said, I don't know. So he said, well, I'm going to go to my home base and everything. I just did a job here because I'm a business person and I had some clients, whatever, in this area, so I'm on my way out. So I can give you a ride to where you want to go if it's in the area, right? And they were riding for hours. So she said, stop here. She saw the sign of a city that she never heard of before. It was in another state even. So she said, stop here. So she said, you know about this place? No. But he got off the thruway. So where you want to go then? She said, I want to go to the neighborhood, to where ghetto, inner city, however you want to call it. So lower class people, the low people, low money people. Anyway, so he found the place and he dropped her off. So in the meantime, she incurred about, is there a soup kitchen around here? Because it was getting close to noontime. And as we were getting close to noontime, that they said, there's a soup kitchen right up the street there. You're welcome. So she went there. And she sat down to eat. People didn't pay too much attention, but a few people did notice this. In fact, two prostitutes came by. They, tried to introduce herself, but she's not talking much. Just, being casual. They trying to talk with her, but then they left. The guy that worked there came over to her and said, so where are you going? What are you doing? So she said, I don't know. Say, where are you going to stay? I don't know. So he offered her to stay at his place. It wasn't too far from the soup kitchen. So anyway, she said, I don't know you. What, like, you might be somebody that's going to hurt me. He said, the way you came in that door, I'm your least problem. I'm your least worries. And she understood what he was saying because she had to go to the bathroom and she looked in the mirror. And the first thing that came out of her mouth was, damn. Puffy eyes, bloodshot, face messed up. There was a chill in the air, needing moisturizer. Hair hasn't been combed. She was in a mess. Yes. So, anyway, so she consented to go to his apartment to spend the night. So they talk, light talk and everything. So not telling him anything of importance. So he said, there's going to be a Bible study tonight, and would you like to come? So she said, yeah. So she straightened up a little bit, went to the Bible study, met some people and everything. But the next day, he says that I've got to run some errands. And I'll be back at the soup kitchen at around noontime. Meet me back at the soup kitchen, okay? So he gave her a $20 bill. Now, she had just a few dollars left from before because she had taken some money with her in order to get on the train, a cab, and all that good stuff. So she went there with the man, got the $20. So she walked around town, walked around the area. She went to a fast food, got a little breakfast sandwich, more or less. And she met him back at the kitchen. But in the meantime, she started a store, and she bought some care products and maybe some unders. So, because she hadn't, changed clothes and everything. So, anyway, she was in need. So, a lady came over to the table where she was sitting that day. Because this day, they had chicken. Yeah, not just soup, but had a meal. So the guy said, this must be in your honor. You know what I mean? So, you must be something special. So, she was a little laugh, a little smile. But the lady came over and said, thanks for coming by the Bible study last night. And then the lady said that, introduce herself. And she said, I'm Jennifer. And Jennifer asked the lady, so, well, what do you do? Lady said, well, I work here, but I am semi-retired and everything. But in the meantime, I noticed that the guy said that you spent the night over to his house, but said, it wouldn't be looking too good for a young lady as beautiful as you are to be living with a man. And there's shelters, but they're not in this area, but there's some shelters in town. But if you would like to, I have an extra room. You can come stay with me. So so Jennifer said, okay, I will do. And they talked a little bit. So that night, while she was at the lady's house, and they talked, the lady had revealed to her that her problems, her issues, her hurts and her pains from the past that was so strong because the lady was homosexual. But in her past days and other days and everything, a lot of things that happened to her, and a lot of confusion, shame and guilt and everything, fears. And Jennifer there explained to her problem, her issues, her circumstances. and her mission now. Oh, okay. And the lady would explain to her, well, there's a school up the street there. So maybe you could talk with some of the some. This is the neighborhood, you know. You know, after all, this is a neighborhood, and things happen in the neighborhood. So Jennifer said, okay. The next day, she stood out there and she around the school area, and sure enough, two girls came up. So what's going on? You know, all that good stuff. And so Jennifer introduced herself, and they said, well, we're on our way to the fast food. And she said, okay, that sounds good. They went there to fast food, and then they talked. Still not telling them exactly what she was doing and why. Because in her back of her mind, she was saying like, okay, God, I'm here. What do I do? How do I do this? What am I supposed to say? How can I explain to these people what's going on or what you want or what you need? But by and by, the two prostitutes became her friend more or less, and she told them that she does hair. And they said, oh, good. So one day they were doing her hair. The prostitute brought a young lady by there, teenager. And it was the same, one of the teenagers that she met that day before, the time before. And like, wow, come to find out the teenager was also in the same situation that Jennifer was in, and going out there, doing her thing to make a little extra money, to get her bling, to get her shoes, to get her outfits on. Now Jennifer is beginning to see a situation, see a light. And as she explained to them about what's going on. So now she became friends with this young lady, this girl. So by and by, she started talking to other girls about her situation and how she got caught up into making the wrong decisions, wrong action, the choices that she made. She talked to teachers. Then her fame spread, her talk about different ones. She went through the community. Young lady come in from nowhere with just the clothes on her back, and she immediately started doing the operation on her mission. So with that in mind, Jennifer stayed there. She did her hair, she had friends, and different things happened. Sometimes things wasn't so good or pleasant to her, but she held on. And she endured the situation. And she and the lady became good friends that she stayed there with. The lady didn't charge her anything, but she offered to help out whatever she could. Now she's on medication for the virus. But after a while, the medication's not really helping too much. So it must have been about 4 or 5 years now. 5 years. She's thinking about her husband and her daughter. How are they doing? Not knowing any of the situation, not getting in touch with them because she really was like hiding out more or less. But now her fame started to increasing about what she's doing. And someone made a documentary about her. And it went on the papers, it went to the magazines. But in the meantime, the virus was kicking in, giving her the weakness and all of the situation and the condition at that time when the virus was really to kill people quick, fast, and in a hurry. But she has survived for 5 years with it. And now it's taking its toll on her. And as it's taking its toll on her, she had to go into a hospital type situation. and now she's ready to give up. So she said her thoughts, her mindset, I didn't die that night, that morning on the mountain. So I'm giving up my life now, but I'm sorry I blew it. I'm sorry that I didn't do what you told me to do, God. But I tried my best. I tried my best. So as she lay there, weak, tears still in her heart is painful. Now, she said, now for real, I'm going to be out of here. But I'm glad I didn't step off that mountain that morning. I'm glad that I was sent on a mission, because now the people that she had influenced, the people that she had made friends with, the people that were there for her, were close to the girls, the prostitutes, the church, the lady, the guys, the soup kitchen, and the people in the neighborhood got to know her. Got to know her. And now she's ready to go. So she raised her hand a little bit, tried to muscle up as much energy as she could to raise her hand up off the side of the bed. So like she's like waving to God, like, I'm ready, I'm out. So the second time she tried to hold her hand up, something clutched her hand. And so she's thinking now that, oh, God forgave me. He touched my hand. So in her tears, trying to force a smile, but there was a squeeze on her hand. This ain't spirit. This is for real. She opened her eyes, and lo and behold, it was her husband. It was her husband. And a voice that came to her, hi babe, something that she hasn't heard in over 5 years. Now 1,000 things came to her mind about what to say, what to do, and what she wanted to say, because she wanted to say so much, but she couldn't. And as she wanted to say this, she looked over. That was her daughter, 8 years old, a little bit low. 8 years old, tall, beautiful. Now, she was too weak to really force a good smile, but she cracked a smile anyway. But now, a shame and a guilt came back over her. She wanted to say so much to her husband. The only thing that she could say, please forgive me. Please forgive me. And as she said that, her eyes closed again in weakness. Eyes closed again to give up the ghost. Eyes closed again. But she heard a voice again that says, I love you so much. The love. Even though she had made mistakes, even though she had made bad choices, even though her decisions brought some consequences, but there's such a thing as forgiveness. There's such a thing as letting go. There's such a thing as moving on, even though the consequences are still there. So I'm just saying this, wonderful people, that we do things sometimes for whatever reasons, but don't ever think that it's over until it's over. That is why the death do it part That is why the decisions and the consequences, decisions bring consequences. Choices sometimes may be bad. And that's why we have to think about these things before we try to make a move, before we do things that might influence or infect others or even ourselves. Think about those things before we take action and then concentrate on those situations. So with that in mind, I do thank you for being with us. Hold tight, lift up, be great because you are great always. Take care. Thank you. Bye now. Mm-hmm.